Test audio for Shaw. 1, 2.
Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 4:14 p.m. I want to humbly acknowledge that we're going to live on the land we live, learn, work, and play, Treaty 8 territory, traditional lands of the Korean Dene, and unceded territory of the Métis people. For record, we have Councillor Ball and Councillor Granson joining us for our teams. And Councillor, if you have your cameras turned on for voting purposes, please. And if anyone in the lobby wishes to register for any of the items coming up, please register to the Legislative Services desk to my right. And just a reminder that you must register before that item starts, and you'll have 5 minutes to present. Please remain on topic and remain seated for questions after. Our first item on the agenda is the Fort McMurray Historical Society options. So I'd like to invite Laurie Farquharson, Corporate Services, Patrick White, Legal Services, and Janelle Fleury from Community Services to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Laurie Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer. With me is Patrick White from our Legal Services Department and Janelle Fleury from Community Services. We're here this afternoon to provide options for the Fort McMurray Heritage Society. The Fort McMurray Heritage Society has outstanding audited financial statements for 2023. In total, the organization received $1.2 million in grant funding between 2023 and 2024, for which there is no accurate or adequate financial reporting. For these reasons, the organization was ineligible for Community Investment Program funding in 2025. Due to requirements under policy and the bylaw, the RMWB cannot release the remainder of the 2024 grant funds to the organization without audited financial statements. Several meetings were held between the Board of Directors and Administration in efforts to resolve their challenges. The audited financials remained outstanding, and the Fort McMurray Heritage Society has indicated that without immediate funding, they will close operations and proceed with dissolving the board beginning March 5th, 2025. We are presenting 3 options for Council's consideration. I will outline each option, followed by rationale on the subsequent slides. Option number 1, that the RMWB does not intervene with the Fort McMurray Heritage Society. Option number 2, that the RMWB takes steps to preserve the artifacts and assets at Heritage Village and Heritage Shipyard after the dissolution of the board. Option 3, that RMWB enters into a service agreement with the Fort McMurray Heritage Society so that operations may continue. Options 2 and 3 have immediate financial implications. Option 1. The Fort McMurray Heritage Society is a separate legal entity under the Societies Act. This means that the RMWB has no obligation to intervene. However, this could result in artifacts and assets at the Heritage Village and Heritage Shipyard being at risk of loss or damage. Under the Heritage Resource Master Plan, preservation of heritage is a priority for the region and an important part of telling the region's story. For option number 2, should the Fort McMurray Heritage Society cease to operate and take the necessary steps to dissolve the board, after settling their liabilities, the RMWB could take steps to preserve the artifacts and assets at the Heritage Shipyard and Heritage Village. This option has short-term financial implications and longer-term implications for operations, as the RMWB would become responsible for developing a longer-term plan for the operation of the sites. Option 2 has an estimated range from $20,000 to $65,000 per month, depending on the security options chosen. Roving security patrols are estimated at $5,000 per month, or 24/7 security would be approximately $50,000 per month. Necessary expenses for insurance and utility costs are approximately $15,000 per month until an operating plan has been established. I need to make reference to a minor error on bullet 4. The municipal funds estimate should state 65,000, not 60,000. For option number 3, it's estimated to cost upwards of $315,000 for 3 months, including $195,000 in ongoing operating expenses. This includes wages, inventory for merchandise, insurance, utilities, maintenance, information technology support, etc. $120,000 is estimated for both 2023 and 2024 audited financial statements, as the 2024 audited financial statements are coming due. Debt repayment on debts incurred by the Fort McMurray Heritage Society would remain an ineligible expense for reimbursement under the service agreement. A service agreement would allow for oversight and payment of eligible expenses, support the organization in addressing financial irregularities with the hopes of resolving compliance to the CIP reporting requirements, and the municipality may extend the option to second an employee who has relevant experience to assist within the interim. This option provides visibility of operations while the board maintains liability. Under the Societies Act, the board would still have authority and control of governance and operations. The goal is to obtain audited financial statements and avoid the board dissolving, putting the heritage artifacts at risk. Through a service agreement, the municipality would pay operating costs on a claim basis, but costs such as debt repayment would not be eligible. This means that the society would submit invoices to the RMWB, which would be reviewed for eligibility, and funds would be released for the approved expenses. Costing reports with supporting documentations would be required to support payment. If the organization is successful in obtaining the 2023 audited financial statements, they may be eligible to receive the remainder of the 2024 CIP funds amounting to $175,000. Pursuing this option does set a precedent which could create funding expectations for other organizations that did not receive CIP funding. This concludes our presentation. We're happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Lori. Councillor Grandison? Or sorry, Councillor Dogar. Sorry, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Dogar was on first. Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, sir, Mr. Mayor, for giving me a chance. Thank you. Very nice presentation. My question is, it didn't take place, audit didn't take place in 2023.
Councillor Dogar, can you move your mic down a little bit, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
It is a old case. So why it was not taken, and was there any appropriate actions taken, that an explanation sought for, that why it was not taken appropriate action for not having the audit?
Through the chair to Councillor Dogar, audited financials are due within 120 days after the fiscal year end. For the Fort McMurray Heritage Society, they were due for 2023 in April of 2024. We did notify them that they were overdue, and we've worked with them over the course of the past several months to try to rectify or resolve having the audited financials submitted. However, they just undertook engaging an auditor late in 2024.
Thank you. My next question is, how much we annually give to, we subscribe to Heritage Park?
Through the chair to Councillor Dogar, the amount changes every year. So in 2024, they would have been eligible to receive $700,000. However, we did withhold $175,000, as my colleague mentioned, due to not having the audited financials. In previous years, it changed between $700,000 to $250,000. In the past, we funded them $380,000 in different years, and in some years upwards of $700,000 or $600,000.
Thank you. Next, who was the president of Heritage Society then? Who was the boss? Who was on the head of the affairs? Varna or somebody else?
Through the chair to Councillor Dogar, the board chair is present in the gallery. It's Steve Huffman. And the executive director at the time of these audited financials was Verna Murphy.
Okay. So has she been called and explained what all were the reasons their point of view was taken or not taken?
Through the chair to Councillor Dogar, yes, we spoke and met with them many times.
Okay. Now, if I go over the options, closing of the, okay, sorry, I will give in my comments, so this is just question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Grandison?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So with that statement that this may create a funding precedence, there's some facts that are missing. One is we own the land, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, yes, that is my understanding, that we own the land that the both sites are on right now.
Thank you. So it doesn't necessarily set up a precedence because some of the other organizations that didn't get funding, we don't own the land. We wouldn't have the same relationship. So that's somewhat misleading in my opinion. So we own the land, and if they dissolved, we still own the land and the chattels that are on the land, correct? So there's that piece, correct?
Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, we do not own the chattels. The improvements, the buildings, they would remain on the land, but the items within it would not belong to us.
Which is fair, but the buildings would still be there. So I'm just trying to get clarity because I found it a little bit misleading. The other question I have is the 1.2 million that makes reference, that's basically 2 years of funding. And some of the information out in the community is a bit off because of that 1.2 million, there were still operations, there were still staff paid. All of these things still happen. And we don't know exactly what is good, bad, or indifferent until we actually get the audit. Is that not correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, that's correct. The 1.2 million is the combination of funds that were released for 2023 and 2024. And until we have the audited financials, we can't verify how those funds were spent.
Exactly, but it doesn't necessarily mean they were spent all incorrectly. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Ball?
Thanks,
You're on mute, Ken.
Sorry, my bad. Thank you, through the chair. My question's about the charitable status. Is Heritage Society considered a charity as well?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, they are a registered nonprofit. The board chair is in the gallery, so could answer if they're a registered charity under the CRA.
When their board chair is up as a delegate, Councillor Ball, you could ask that question of him.
Okay, well, I'll continue on then. So the reason I'm asking is as I'm wondering if, I guess our legal people can answer this. If they are a charitable organization under the whatever, is there not federal regulations that need to be adhered to relative to their charity? And have we taken that into account versus us, these options here, potentially one of them is the municipality taking over the operations. Well, we're not a charity. So need to understand that, are we even able to do so if they are a charity? If they aren't, it's a moot point, but if they are, I think we have to consider it.
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, so in option 2, that we would be taking over the buildings, that would be after the society has been dissolved, and we would simply be putting the heat on, ensuring that the place is not damaged by weather or vandals or anything. We would not be operating it per se like it is being done today. We would simply be preserving it in the short term until a long-term solution has been decided. In option 3, we would not be operating, but they would themselves would be operating. They would give us invoices, and then if they were eligible, we would pay them. So at no point would the municipality begin to operate the historical society.
Okay. And no matter what, if you keep the options where the board stays intact, I assume there's a chance at any time the board could dissolve no matter what.
Through this chair to Councillor Ball, yes, that is correct. They could dissolve at any time. We do not have the ability to control that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Benjogo.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for the presentation. I don't know if I need to wait for the board chair or so, but I'm wondering why and how we got to where we are right now. It's not like they didn't know they had to submit the financial statement, right? And so I don't get the point of my colleague in terms of setting precedents. I think certainly to set a precedence if there is no consequences for not following the process.
Through the chair to Councillor Benjogo, they, yes, were aware that they did not submit the audited financials. We worked with them many times over the months to try to get that reporting. The board has been undertaking trying to get that reporting completed and would be able to speak better to how they got to this point.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, we don't have the obligation to take on the problems and liabilities of this organization. We do not.
Through the chair to Councillor Benjogo, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe I'll wait for the board. And do we have anyone who will be able to answer questions apart from the board chair from the Heritage Society?
I think a lot of the Heritage Society are here today.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'll wait for that question.
Okay. Thanks, Councilor Joko. Now, looking back, I know 2023, 2022, we approved funding there, and I'm going to assume we have approved funding for the years past. Has there ever been any anything like this come up prior to 2021?
Prior to through the chair, prior to 2021, I wasn't with the community investment program. In 2022, in 2023, their 2022 audited financials were also completed late.
Okay, but we did receive them.
Yes.
Thanks.
And through the chair, I can answer a little bit more on that. We've recently engaged in a review of the entire program, and historically, before Ms. Fleury was there, the society did not have problems with its audits. In fact, in some years, it was so well run that it did not require grants at all. But this is a very recent issue.
Okay, so we as a council, we've gone back to 2022. So even prior to 2021, it ran incredibly well. Thank you, Patrick. The other question is maybe for everyone in the public, because what I'm hearing in the public is that it can be taken over or we appoint a new board and that sort of thing. Patrick, you probably explained this the best, but what our actual relationship with the Fort McMurray Heritage Society actually is?
Through the chair to the question, it is an independent society. The municipality has no control over it. This is not like RRC or ACDEV or anything of that nature. So they are completely independent and they make their own decisions and their own choices.
Perfect, thank you. Does council have any more questions? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much. And we have one delegate for this item. I'd like to invite Steve Huffman up, please. And Steve, you could say your name for the record, as well as just to remind you of 5 minutes to present and remain seated for questions afterwards, please.
My name is Steve Huffman, and I will start my brief notes. So, good afternoon, Mayor and Council, RMWB administration, staff, members of the audience. My name is Steve Huffman, and I am the board chair of the Fort McMurray Heritage Society. First and foremost, I would also like to humbly acknowledge that these lands we live, learn, work, and play on is on Treaty 8 territory, the lands of the Cree, Dene, and unceded territory of the Métis. Our society and its facilities are committed to preserving the history and traditions of this region with the highest respect and dignity that it deserves. And I want to talk you through a summary of the events that have taken the Society over the past 3 months. The Fort McMurray Heritage Society operations was taken over by the Board of Directors on November 28th of 2024, following suspicions of financial mismanagement. All financials were frozen on November 29th and remain in control of only the board today. Since the takeover, the following has occurred. The executive director is requested and placed on medical leave. 2024 Christmas in the Park was hosted for the community in December, run by volunteers, staff, and board members. We do have an RCMP investigation that was actioned. There is an insurance claim that was launched and is aggressively being pursued. An accredited accounting firm has been engaged and actively working to reconcile 2023 and 24 financials. An intense rationalization of spending was completed. Staffing was reduced from 10 to 4 positions, and all discretionary spend was eliminated. Budget reduced to wages, utilities, insurance, and basic building services. The spend has been refocused on preservation of the historical assets. No new events planned or new bookings have been placed. All accounts, spend, and operations decisions remain under the board oversight. The board met daily throughout 2024 to keep the doors open and continues to meet 2 times per week to action and support remaining staff with operational duties. Since December 2024, the board has had numerous meetings with the RMWB administration to discuss this current situation and progress to seek support. An audit progress letter was provided. The board communicated to the RMWB administration that if the Heritage Society does not receive support by February 21st, the society would be forced to close. To avoid the closure, RMWB requested a meeting for February 25th, which the board attended. The board provided an update and explained the society would have to close that week if we did not have a responsibility to ensure the staff received their severances. However, council intervened and would like to structure the society to ensure that it does not close, which is where we find ourselves today. I specifically want to address the $1.2 million of unaccounted for funding as well. That was part of the release notice to the public this morning. This is 2 years of funding through the RMWB CIP program for 2023 and 2024, to which we have not provided complete financial audit. Upon takeover on November 29th, the board started the audit process that same week. Weekly meetings are held with the accounting firm to progress the actions ASAP. Late March is the current target date for the 2023 audited financials. The board acknowledges its part that we find ourselves in today. There are many lessons to be learned from this event. We trusted we were receiving accurate information on the status of the society, which unfortunately was not the case. Strict oversight verification process is in place if the society continues. The purpose of tonight is to determine if the Fort McMurray Heritage Society continues to stay open. The board is welcome to options that help keep the park open, including if that means removing the board. Heritage Village was created in 1963 with a goal to ensure the history of Fort McMurray and the surrounding region was preserved and recorded for future generations. The board believes preservation of Fort McMurray's historical assets is important and eager to partner with the RMWB to develop a path forward that ensures that the buildings and artifacts remain available for generations of families to celebrate, discover, learn, and play at Heritage Village and Heritage Shipyard. And here find themselves as part of the stories for those who came before them. I look forward to our future discussions so we can continue to build a path forward together.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have any questions for the delegate? Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Thank you for your presentation, Steve. Much appreciated. Have you seen the three options? Have those been presented to you tonight? The three options that got that administration put forward to us?
I saw it, the first time I saw the three options was actually this morning.
Okay. Are you guys agreeable to, of those, I guess, of those three options, which one would you consider the board to be most agreeable to?
I would think number 3.
Okay. And would you guys think that you guys are agreeable to number 3?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your presentation, Chair. So if I understand correctly, you took over the board on November 28th of 2024?
No, we took over operations of 2024. Up to that point, we had an executive director that reported to the board.
Okay, so how long have you been the board chair?
I believe I was, I'll use the term elected, but this is my fourth year, I believe, 4th or 5th year.
And I want to assume you knew this financial report wasn't being submitted.
We couldn't get confirmation until we actually dug in ourselves. From what we were told as to what was actually going with the audit, we were told the audit was in progress when in fact it was not.
So, and this will be the ED reporting to you that this was in progress?
Correct.
And now the ED is on medical leave?
Correct.
Since last year?
Since I believe we were given a letter in November of last year. I don't have an exact date in front of me.
Okay, so even if we were to go by option 3, that you seem to prefer, then how would this organization continue?
From our
Sorry,
plans.
Steve, if you could speak into the mic, I think.
Oh, sorry. From our discussions with the RMWB and ourselves in our crisis meetings is up to the point of receiving financial assistance. We were looking for an interim executive director. We had posted at one point after our meetings. And again, that would be interim until we find out what's happening with our ED that's on leave right now. We would like to be able to move forward because we're all volunteers. Mm-hmm. Right? We all have day jobs, family commitments and the rest of it. So for us to move from being the overall governance down to actually being into operations that we've never been in before was, I mean, it's just incredible, the effort that they put in to get us to the position that we're in today. But unfortunately, we're out of money to continue.
Okay. So apart from option 3, which other options do you think will work?
Do I have?
Because option 3 seems to be the most cost consuming.
I mean, our main goal is to keep the operation or keep the park and the shipyard available to the community. And we know that option number 1 isn't going to do that. Option number 2 is, I mean, care and control is one thing, but it's just not the same.
Okay.
You know, my heart goes out to our staff. It really does. You know, they put their heart and souls into it, as the board has as well. And to see it disappear is too much.
Okay, so we are to, the audited account is going on. The auditing is going on right now
Correct. Yes, the audit is going on now. They
for
have-
23? For 2023?
For 2023, yes.
And that will be ready by end of March.
End of March, we're told by the auditors that they will have it complete. And that, I mean, if we continue, then we can move straight into the 2024 audit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Majoko. Councilor Dogar?
Thank you, sir, for giving me opportunity. Thank you, Steve, for coming over and giving a nice presentation. How many directors are there, and are they paid or they are volunteers?
At this point in time, there are 8 directors, and we are not paid anything.
Fine, thank you. Thanks for your volunteer work.
We
Yeah,
will accept help.
you know, that idea is to highlight it, you see. That's what the acceptance is, that is what the acknowledgement and appreciation is. Thank you for your job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dogar. Any other questions from council? What questions, Steve? How many times did the board meet before it took over operations?
We have, in our bylaws, we're required to meet a minimum of 6 times per year and 1 AGM.
Okay, and when did you guys, when were you told the audit was underway?
When were we told the audit was on the way?
Yeah, because it would have been due last April.
We provided a letter to the RMWB 3 weeks ago from the auditing company.
Because that's when it was done. But were you told before that? You had mentioned that you were given the information that there was an audit being done previous to that.
Yes, we had asked August of 2024. August or September of 2024, I signed a letter of agreement with the auditing company to start.
Okay, and then and the date you guys, since you've taken over, how many times do you meet since you've taken over operations?
Is that twice a week or once?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, Steve. Thank you. Would someone like to bring forward a motion? Oh, sorry, Councilor Dogar.
It's not a question. I just request that option 3 may be flashed again. I want to.
I have it on paper. It's easier to read.
I got one.
Okay. Thanks, Councilor Dogar. Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion here with a little bit of an amendment to number 3, but pretty close to the same.
Send it to Ken's phone.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that RMWB enter into agreement with the Fort McMurray Heritage Society so that it may continue operating Heritage Park and Heritage Shipyard and allocate up to $300,000 from emerging issue reserves to the community partnerships and initiatives operating budget for 3 months of operations. The agreement to include, but not limited to, amending the society's bylaws to include 1 counselor and 1 council-appointed resident to their board with voting rights.
Councilor Dogar?
I second it.
Okay, I think you can on your screen.
On the screen there.
Thanks, Councilor Dogar. Do you have any debate points, questions, or discussion from council?
May I
Councilor
speak?
Benjoka? Oh, go ahead, Councilor Weigel.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I first want to thank Steve for his presentation and just being agreeable to working with administration. Obviously, with many things, I heard from the chair, from an insurance claim to RCMP to the ED being on medical leave and all the types of things that are going on. We are looking for obviously just close oversight with late audit 1 year and then missing the audit from last year. That if we could have straight visibility on the board, then we could be connected at real time of what's going on and have confidence of the moving forward. Obviously, we care about the assets and the preservation of the heritage, both Heritage in Fort McMurray and the Heritage Society that has governed over it for a long time. So, to me, I think that if we can be there with them through this, as they're all volunteers and going through, I think it keeps us, like I said, it keeps us real time and close visibility of what's going on.
Thanks, Councilor Weigel. Councilor Benjoka?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Councilor Weigel, how would you defend other organizations who might want to challenge the fact that the financial obligation to submit financial statements were not met by this organization?
Can you clarify the question? Would I defend if somebody wanted to come forward and...
How would you defend going ahead to allocate fund to this organization when some organizations did not receive their funding because they didn't submit their financial statement and audited accounts?
Yeah, this, I guess my defense is the fact that this money is already, we're not refunding them for a 2025 CIP. This is funding that's already been allocated towards them, understanding that the audited fund is not there. They're in the middle of an audited financial. I'm not looking to necessarily hand it over, but I also care about the assets of Heritage Society assets. And so that's why I would like to put a council member as well as a council appointed board, a council appointed community member on the board to follow through with the funding that we've already gone through, get through the audited financials and see the state that they're in at that point, and then administration and as council, if we see fit, to be able to fund them going forward. I'm not looking for new funding. This is funding that's already been allocated to them, and so just following through with that, and again, the preservation of all of the assets at Heritage Park is understanding that we don't, as a municipality, we don't actually own them. The Heritage Society owns them, and so looking out for that as well.
Okay. And this is for short term. So on longer term, what are we going to do? And then the management or the ED that oversaw this situation is on medical leave. So what happens if she comes back, Mayor Bowman?
I'm not on the board, but that'll be up to the board what they decide to do. But I think look at the history of the finances of the board, 2022, previous 2021. I think the board's shown that it can run this successfully and sometimes without funding. So I think put some confidence in the board on making those decisions. But I think they've got themselves in a bad situation, made some bad decisions, and maybe not had some as deep of a look into what was going on that was. But I think a motion like this would definitely help them move forward. but I don't think it's a long-term. I think we're hoping that once this audit is done, it gets back on track.
Okay. And then my other concern is, so the auditing is going on. So we're going to find out what happened, and there should be consequences if funds were mismanaged.
Absolutely, and that's, as the chair mentioned, there's an insurance claim going on, there's active RCMP investigation going on, the audit's going on, so when all those things come forward, then we'll have a full report from the board on where they're at.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, because those are the concerns that I have, and I know that the public is watching to see what we want to do with this one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Bonjoko. And I have a question for legal. If Patrick could move up. Just a question, Patrick. Going over this motion, is this something we can do?
Through the chair to the question, if the society voluntarily appoints a counselor as a member of their board, they can certainly do that. I would not necessarily recommend that as a condition. It's, again, they are an independent society and they make their own choices, but they are here today, so perhaps they will make that choice.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councilor Ball?
Thank you through the chair. So with that answer, and that's kind of what I was curious about, although we can put it in a motion that it has to include one counselor, society doesn't have to agree to that. Am I correct?
That's correct.
I would think from what Patrick said, that's correct.
So then the motion needs to be revised. But my question is about the 300K. How do we, I'm trying to understand, is it to be assumed that it costs $100,000 a month to operate? Or are we talking about some back debt here, some other stuff to clean up? And where it says up to 300K, what happens if it's 301?
I think they have to come back to council, but I'll leave that to Lori or Janelle or somebody to answer that.
Through the chair to the question, the estimate was up to $65,000 per month, which was based on estimates that the board had given us, but that also included $60,000 for the audit for the 2023 and $60,000 for 2024.
Oh, okay. So that's,
yeah. So it's 100.
That's the additional.
Yeah, there is a math error in the report. You know, $65,000 for 3 months would be $195,000. So the estimate that was put in the report was $300,000 instead of $315,000, which is what I spoke to.
Right, and so the number should be 315 at a minimum.
Correct.
If it's 65 per month, plus the additional 120. I assume the 120 is an estimate as well.
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, the board advised that the auditors that they had secured provided an estimate of $60,000 to do the 2023.
So, and was it 175,000 that was still outstanding to be paid? That was approved in their CIP. Was that the number?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, that is correct. And we did discuss how we would manage this, whether the actual option 3 says that the funding would come out of the emerging issues reserve, and then we would have to look at, would we then deduct those expenses from the $175,000? But obviously it wouldn't be enough to cover the entire thing. So in order to get in there and do the assessment, we're recommending putting aside $300,000 and work with the board to a place where they get their audited financials and we can report back.
I'm just trying to understand what the overall cost is that hasn't been approved already, because I'm making an assumption that the 175 is already approved, although there's certainly some concerns about getting those funds to the society. So in reality, it would be a fair assumption that this is going to cost us an additional $140,000-ish, not really 300. It's an additional 140. I get that you're going to have to shuffle money and get it from different bank accounts, but it's all the same giant pot.
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, Janelle will speak to that.
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, in 2024, they were approved for $700,250. The $175,000 is what is remaining owed when their audited financials are submitted. However, the $300,000 service agreement would be separate. It is a separate agreement. In order to, I guess, claw back funds from the grant or from the service agreement, the service agreement would need to speak to the grant, and the grant agreement would need to be amended. So the service agreement funds are in addition to the grant amount.
So we're looking at a grand cost of $475 then.
Through the chair, that's correct.
That would be remaining to be paid. Is there any chance that that 175 would not be released back to the society? You know, considering some of the things we've heard here, and I know it's a sensitive topic, but is there a chance that their audited financials would never pass?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, yes, there is a possibility.
So if that happens, do we come back for another 175?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, I think I understand your question. If the audited financials are not adequate, or there's revelations from the audited financials, we wouldn't ask for additional funds.
Would not? They just have to live without the 175?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, that's correct.
So the reason I'm asking that is we're being told today that if we don't give them the 175, they're closing the doors tomorrow. So I'm struggling with this. I don't know that we have the numbers right. I think we'll be revisiting this in 3 months or whenever these financials are done. I fully support the Heritage Society, but and obviously the facilities, but there seems to be something missing here in my eyes. I just think we're going to be coming back to this.
Thanks, Councillor Ball.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, Councillor Barr, and this is just for open dialogue, just to hopefully kind of get on the same page. So just to think back and forth, I think my understanding, and Janelle can correct me if I'm wrong, I think this gets them through the operations and the 2 audited reports. If the audit comes back inadequate, as you would put it, I would believe that they would not be eligible for funds, and then that we'd be looking at a different path forward. If the audited comes back okay, then I think that the 175 then would be released, and then we'd move past forward, and they would have to apply again for CIP in the future, is how I understand it.
So, and that's how I understand it as well. So I think we're at a bit of a gamble that we're looking at $300,000 basically to find out what happens in 3 months. And I don't know that 3 months is, frankly, enough time. I don't know that this will be resolved in 3 months.
Agreed. I got a question, I guess, to the chair to the chair again. You said that the audited financials.
If you could come up, Mr. Huffman, it'd be easier to answer.
Thank you again for taking the question. You said that the audited financials look like they'll be done at the end of March for 2023.
Correct.
Do we have a timeline for 2024?
Not until it's the same company that's going to do it. So
do they need to finish fully 2023 before they start 2024?
yes, that's my impression.
Okay, and they've taken 3 months to do this audit?
Roughly.
Yes, that is correct.
So it'd be the idea that it'd probably be 4 months before we saw the 2024 audit.
I would think once they become engaged, I'm not an auditor,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but I think once they're into the books and the rest of it there, it should be fairly straightforward. But again, I'm
Sure. Through the chair to Director Farquharson, would you have a better understanding of how fast the 2024 audit, pending everything's there?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, I think that is one of the sticking points, is they don't have all of the information. So if they don't have information and they're trying to chase things down, it's taking a lot longer. I know that the board has been working very diligently to try to track things down, but it's difficult for the auditors. If they don't have all the facts and they don't have all the data, they can't complete the audit. So certainly for our organization, our audit takes several months, but we provide them with all the information up front for them to do their analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know that we talked back and we talked to legal, and I don't want to put you on the spot. And I know you're one vote of the board, but with the motion going forward with one councillor on the board and one appointed resident, do you think that the board would be agreeable to that amendment to that third option?
I would welcome you with open arms.
Thank you.
Which leads to my question while you're here, Mr. Huffman. Would your board's liability insurance, cover adding other board members to it?
I believe we have liability insurance for board members. I'm not an insurance either, so I can't answer whether or not we would have to have additional. I doubt it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
One question from my side.
Oh, okay, Councillor Dogar.
Thank you, sir, for giving me a chance. In the previous years, is the Heritage Park going under debt? Are you loaning, or it is going even?
No,
Going even?
We have not gone into debt.
Okay.
We have had I'll call it a small reserve.
Okay, break even.
But
Thank you very much. This is a very appropriate reply. If there is not going in debt, there should not be much of problem. And my observation about is, I have visited Heritage Park, different functions, festivals. They are being organized very well, nice and clean. Even the offices I have gone many times, not many times, few times. So it is functioning absolutely okay. And if it is not going in debt, not much of my problem. Thank you very much. Another observation, Mr. Mayor, you said that you are not the member. I feel wherever the taxpayers' money from municipality goes, you, being the chairman, should go and oversee, or on your behalf, any of the councillors. We should not have the reply that we are not the members. I think wherever we send money, whether to Heritage Park, whether to any other organization, Metis, or any place, we should own the responsibility of watching it out. Thank you.
Thanks for your opinion. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So, excuse me, one of the intentions of
You
the...
just hang out.
Me?
Sorry, go ahead. Just let Mr. Huffman know he could just hang on there in case you had a question for him. Go ahead, Councillor Grandison.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. One of the reasons for the motion in the first place was we give a lot of money to communities, not just to Heritage Park. And there's a gap in my mind to ensuring that community volunteers are given the support, the guidance, and the expertise to be successful in spending municipal dollars. So I'm hoping.
Sorry, Councillor Grandison.
Just...
I'm sorry, Councillor Grandison. Do we have 6 councillors on right now? We do not have 6?
He's there.
Okay, we just have to pause for a moment. Well, oh, sorry, didn't see Councillor McGrath. Sorry, we do have 6. Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay, so part of my hopes is that this isn't just stopping here. It's looking at the bigger picture. Heritage Park is going to need continued support. Other agencies, we have the expertise, and if we don't, we should have it, to ensure these boards have got the appropriate bylaws, the appropriate financial controls, all of those things in place. And that was the broader part of this motion that I put forward in November, is to look at all of them and to do better. So I'm hoping that this isn't just a patchwork, get them back on their way and call it a day. We need to do better, in my opinion. So that's my comments related to this, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Grandison. Thanks, Steve. Are there any questions from council? I'm not seeing any. So I know Councilor Binjoko's reservations. I do understand that we could open the door for Pandora's box, but I think this is a specific situation that we couldn't have foreseen. And the board couldn't have foreseen as well, as we have a lot of groups in town, a lot of organizations that are run by volunteers that volunteer a lot of time in this, and they really put their heart and soul into it. And like, we may not have a legal obligation, but I think as councillors and community members, we have a moral obligation to take care of our heritage of this community. So with that, I don't see any other lights on. Councillor Binjoko, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with you totally that we need to preserve the history, and no doubt we need to. But I just also want to be sure that we don't set a precedence, and it's good to be proactive and be ready for answers when people start asking questions. And so I ask that question so that the public can also hear the response. And if we are not ready, then we can go get the answer. So that's my, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Binjoko. And I think the board heard loud and clear, and they know now. I'm sure they'll make sure they have the audited financials in their hands.
Yes.
So with that, everyone,
Yes.
I will be supporting this, and I'll call for a vote. Online by show of hands.
All for your vote.
In favor.
In favor. I vote against, Mayor Bowman.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. And that's carried with one opposed. Thank you, everyone. And that concludes the public portion of tonight's meeting. We're moving into a closed session, so I ask everyone to clear the gavel. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Thank you, everyone.